Septic shock. Okay. What happens in sepsis? Sepsis, there is invasion of microbes into the body. What happens when any microbes come into the body? There are certain structures on the cell wall of microbes like PAMs, G proteins, etc. What do this do? What are the functions, or what is the role of these structures? PAMs full form is pathogen associated molecular products. Pathogen associated molecular products. Molecular products. So what happens in all these things? Uh, these PAMs or structures like PAMs are there. No, there. Our body can identify these structures. When they see these structures like PAMs and all, they understand that there is invasion of microbe or a foreign substance. So what happens? So our body has a mechanism, okay. Whenever this microbes or any other fungi they invade into the body, they have to resolve it. They have to remove it from the body. It starts working. That is what is happening. It is a mechanism. That mechanism is called inflammation. So what happens in inflammation is we are going to see now. Inflammation, there is activation of innate immunity. Okay, immunity gets activated. There is inflammation in the body. There is inflammation. There is WBC comes from all the places to the place where microbes are present, and they release all the inflammatory mediators like tumor. They release all the inflammatory mediators like tumor necrosis factor, interleukin 1, etc., etc. That time what it will happen, there is, when all these factors are released, there is hyperinflammation. There is hyperinflammation. What happens when there is hyperinflammation? What is happening in inflammation, we have to see. When all these factors, WBC contains inflammatory factors like tumor necrosis factor, interleukin 1, interleukin 6, all this further increase the inflammation. They do certain things, okay. They go and act on this pathogen. They act on it. They help in chemotaxis. What is chemotaxis? Chemotaxis in the sense, this removal of the bacteria, okay. Phagocytosis, all phagocytosis, chemotaxis, all these things happen. So these inflammatory mediators are like certain substance that is helping in further removal of this bacteria from the body. That is what is happening. And it also loosens. What it does, it activates the endothelium. It also goes and activates the endothelium. When the endothelium is activated, the gap junctions between this endothelium become loose. And what happens after that? The blood is flowing, the blood starts leaking. The blood products start leaking. What happens when the blood products start leaking? When the blood products start leaking, there is tissue edema. What happens? there is tissue edema, and also there is loss of many proteins. They also go and get collected in this tissue spaces. Okay, so there is no further flow of blood to any organ out there. One thing. Next, what is happening? Okay, there is no further flow of any substances. There is and also they cause what, vasodilation. They increase the permeability in the sense, just what I told, like the endothelium, the gap junctions get loosened, stuck, etc, etc. And they also go and activate factor 12. The coagulant pathway also gets activated. Okay, it also goes and activates factor 12. When factor 12 is activated, what happens? There is clot formation. So what happens in clot formation? Clot is forming, so blood is flowing. There is many clotting factors in this blood. All the clotting factors, when they flow, they'll get collected here, collected here, collected here, collected here, collected here. The clotting factors go on diminishing, and the clot go on increasing, and upon that we have also seen there is tissue edema. Tissue edema compresses this blood vessel. This is a very small blood vessel. It is compressing this blood vessel. There is an end organ here, like heart, sorry, not heart, kidneys, spleen, etc. What is happening? There is no blood flowing. When there is no blood flowing, what happens? There is tissue ischemia. Tissue ischemia. After that, what happens? There is end organ failure, and it is also going and activating the complement pathway. Complement pathway, you learn in microbiology. It also helps in the removal of bacteria and production of more antibodies. So what is happening finally in all these things? So one major thing that you are seeing, there is end organ damage. Okay, because of all the process. Next, there is also a metabolic abnormality that we can see. What is that metabolic abnormality? There is hyperglycemia. Hyperglycemia. All this, as I've told you, know the tumor necrosis factors, substances, and all. What they do is, and because of this condition, there is also release of stress induced hormones. Stress induced hormones. So what are the stress induced hormones? Like glucocorticoids, glucagon, etc. All this gets released. Okay, so why is it happening? Let's see. First of all, there is no blood that is flowing. Blood has glucose in that, glucose plus oxygen. Because of oxidative there is oxidative phosphorylation, which we have learnt in biochemistry, that helps in conversion of glucose to ATP. Okay, so there is no blood flowing, so the final organ, okay, is waiting for blood, oxygen, glucose, but nothing is reaching. So what does the body thinks? The body thinks there is no glucose in the body. That is why it releases all these hormones like glucagon, glucocorticoids, etc. And thereby it increases gluconeogenesis. that results in hyperglycemia. Hyperglycemia, okay. And even the production of insulin decreases. But what is happening? This glucose should get converted into something. No, it gets converted into lactic acid because there is no oxidative phosphorylation. It gets converted into lactic acid that results in lactic acidosis. So overall, this is a pathogenesis of septic shock. So you should remember, if we have to conclude, you have to remember there is invasion of microbial products. A thief enters into the home. The time all the alarms start ringing once you identify the see the thief in the camera. Okay, let's consider this camera in the sense like this PAMs and G cell proteins. They see them. After seeing them, what they'll do? They'll start producing inflammatory mediators like tumor necrosis factor, interleukin 8, nitric oxide, reactive oxygen species, etc. Everything get released. When they get released, what happens? There is endothelium activation. When there is endothelium activation, there is increase in permeability, there is increase in vasodilatation, etc. And also there is activation of complement pathway. When complement pathway is activated, there is enough toxins, chemotaxis, all this happening that is helping in further removal of the pathogen. And next, there is even activation of clotting factors. These clotting factors, what they do is they form clot. When clot is formed, there is increase in what the when clot is formed, it is this clot either blocks the small blood vessels. When these small blood vessels are blocked, there is no flow of further blood into the end organs. When this happens, there is end organ damage, and further there is increase in consumption of all these clotting factors. When there is consumption of all these clotting factors, what happens? There is no
Along
clotting
with this,
factors
there
in the
is
blood
also,
that results in
as a
increase
result
in
of the
bleeding.
consumption of all these clotting factors, there is hemorrhage all over the body, and thereby that leads to loss of further fluids. So this is a pathogenesis of septic shock. Thank you. Have a nice day.